Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So we have some news that we want to share with you guys today that I guess this is not what we would like to have to share. Um, but I know there's a lot of taboo around this topic, which is why I really wanted to share my story, what happened to us, and kind of like help anybody else who may be in this position to also feel a little bit more, not like comfortable, but how would you describe it? Like
Comfortable is pretty accurate.
comfortable with the situation. So
Like broaching the subject.
yeah, broaching the subject because it's really taboo, but it's a lot more common than you would think, and it's not really a topic that you really ever talk about or discuss unless it's something that either happens to you or to a close friend or a family member of yours. So we just want to bring, I guess, a little bit more awareness to the overall situation. I don't know why I'm talking about it like it's a big elephant in the room, because obviously it will be included in the title somewhere, but essentially miscarriages. So I know it's a really awkward subject to talk about, and we'll kind of also cover the basis as to how it felt awkward bringing it up with some of our family members and friends. But yeah, we're just gonna do a deep dive into it. It's been a couple of months now, so we've definitely had our time to kind of process our emotions and thoughts, and I know everybody handles it differently, so I would definitely recommend it. Don't judge anybody that you know of that's going through this. Like, they have to handle it their own way. So yeah, we're just gonna take a deep dive into our story. Just to preface this, we are not family planning. This was completely unintended. We weren't trying to have kids, although I know we do want to have kids in the near future, within the next like what, 2 to 3 years or so.
Yeah.
That'd be ideal.
Yeah.
I'll give you guys a little bit backstory for myself. So when I was 16, I actually got pregnant for the first time ever. I definitely was not ready for a child at that point. So I had an abortion, and I felt that that was at that time the best decision to make, because I was not fit to care for a child financially, emotionally, mentally, that whole thing. So even if I was to have a kid, it wouldn't make sense. Like, that kid would not be able to have the life I would want to be able to give it. I compartmentalize my feelings and my thoughts, and I kind of blocked that part of my life out. A lot of people sometimes ask me, like, how did you feel about that? And I was like, you know what, honestly, I don't know, because I put it in a side of my head where I don't ever think about and I don't ever really address, and that's how I handle, like, is that psychological, physiological trauma?
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah. Sounds accurate enough.
That's just the way how I handle things that happen in my life. So there was that back then. And it's been, I'm 29 now. I'm turning 30 this year. So 14
Like
years.
13 and a half.
13, 14 years.
Yeah.
I'm at a point in my life now where I do start wanting to have kids and to start trying. And I guess because of that situation, the thought always pops up back into my head, like, what if I did something to my body at that time that would prevent me from having kids? And I'm pushing 30, so, you know, time's a ticking. We can't have kids for much longer if we don't start pretty soon. Well, you can have kids. You always can. It's
Yes,
just
you can.
it's healthier for the mother and for the child the earlier on that you have them. At the back of my head, there was always that concern, like, what if what I did in the past would affect my ability to have kids in the future? So myself, I actually stopped taking birth control about a year and a half ago. He wasn't a fan of it. I actually didn't tell Peter when I started doing this, actually. So the whole thing was that I was originally on my parents' health insurance, and then once I turned 25, I was no longer on my parents' health insurance anymore. The cost of birth control is extremely expensive. I didn't like the idea of constantly putting chemicals to my body, nor did I also like the idea of taking pills every single day. I have a really, really bad gag reflex, and I can't even take like the smallest, like Tylenol and Advils, so taking birth control just like really grossed me out. I know a lot of people have discussed other things such as like the IUD, the patch, different things. I don't like things being intrusive. So yeah, I kind of just like went off on it on my own. It wasn't a conscious decision though. I just stopped taking it one day. I missed a couple days and I was like, well, you know what? I just screwed up my cycle for that month, so let's just not even bother this month. And I just carried on. And then when I went off of my parents' health insurance, it just got expensive. It's like 3 times more expensive when you're purchasing it for yourself full price. I didn't have health insurance for myself. I was self-employed, so yeah, I didn't really have anything to help offset the cost of it. So I just kind of like, I guess, unconsciously went off of it. I've been off it for the past year and a half, and then in November, actually September, I had my period really late, and then October, I completely missed my period. Now, since going off of birth control, I've missed my period a couple of times. It always just ended up coming around like late by like a week or two. So I thought like, okay, maybe it's just another situation like that. But I completely missed it this time. It didn't come at all. And then I started getting some symptoms of pregnancy. And like at the back of my head, it wasn't confirmed that I was pregnant yet. But there were some like, my spidey senses were tingling. I remember for myself, I started to feel a lot of tenderness in my breasts, and they started feeling a lot heavier and bigger. I have tiny boobs. I joke on here all the time, guys, that I'm like as flat as a wall, but they were getting big. And for somebody who's had small, like literally, I guess, non-existent boobs their entire life, it just was weird to me. So that set me off. And those were really similar symptoms of pregnancy that I had when I was 16. So I knew right off the bat that was contributing to it. What else was there? You said I had weird cravings.
Yeah, you just wanted to eat everything. Like everything. It was strange.
I thought maybe this was just kind of like my PMS settling in, because whenever I get my period, I also have weird cravings. Like I will eat literally all day long, 7 to 8 meals, and not get hungry when I'm on my period. So I thought, okay, maybe this is just like my period coming in.
This was a different level.
I didn't recognize
There's
it.
levels to this game.
He noticed it, so I don't know. And then I started getting like really tired all the time, which I later found out was one of the symptoms of pregnancy. And then as a joke one day, we were actually at Shoppers picking up some, I think dish soap and some toilet paper.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what, let's just pick up a pregnancy test just to try. So I wandered down.
But we were like a week late already, right?
We were only a week late at that point.
Or you were, I guess not we.
I think,
whatever.
yeah, whatever. I would say we. It's
Whatever.
a product of the two of us. We were a week late, and I was like, you know what, as a joke, let's just pick up a pregnancy test and to see, because I had some thoughts at the back of my head, but I wasn't confirmed yet. So I brought it home, and it was one of those situations where like you don't want to take the test because that confirms that you are pregnant, but at the same time you do want to take the test to find out that you are not pregnant. Kind of like how some people don't want to go to a doctor because they're afraid of finding out that they have something. So I put it off for about a week, but every single day having that test sit there on top of the toilet tank was just like a constant reminder, and it was like boring into my soul. So after about a week, I woke up one morning and was like, screw it, I'm just gonna take it just to see. I think at the back of my head too, I was pretty confident at that point, like 85 to 90% confident that I was pregnant.
I think we were both were. It was
yeah.
on a Tuesday morning. I still remember.
Wow.
Yeah, we went
Good
to
memory.
Shoppers on Saturday night. Big invigorating plans on Saturday night, going to get dish soap and toilet paper. And then, Tuesday morning.
Tuesday morning. So I woke up. I didn't tell Peter I was gonna do it. I just woke up with like this thought. I was like, I'm gonna do it today. So I went to go pee, did the test at the same time, waited, washed my face and everything, and then went to check the results, and I found out that I was pregnant. So then I called Peter to come in to see the test, and you want to explain your reaction a little bit?
Yeah, apparently I don't know how to read. That's what I've established. I had no idea how to read that thing. It's not just like, I don't know if other ones are like this.
Some of them say pregnant, not pregnant.
Oh, okay. I was thinking more of, in the movies, how it was just like a negative and a positive.
Yeah, these are the old school ones that do that.
Yeah, this one had more than that though. This is like...
It was two parallel lines.
Yeah, it was just 2 lines. It's like, what is this? What is equal? You know? I don't understand it.
So
obviously I don't know how to read.
You thought I was not pregnant at first.
Correct.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and then I was just really thrown off. I actually I was like, what? Like, how does that make sense? Because all the other signs say that you are, so...
Yeah.
I was pretty confused.
And then I told him to check again.
Still don't know how to read.
Anyways, he eventually realized that I was pregnant. I think because for the both of us, this wasn't a planned pregnancy. We were both in a little bit of a shock. Being pregnant completely changes your life, I would say. We are a dual income, no kids, a dink. Yeah, dual income,
Correct.
no kids couple. We obviously plan to have kids in the future because we really do want to have a family and to have kids, but it's not within the scope of like our current short-term plans. So it was a shock for both of us, but I was also going through stages of like, I guess, guilt of like, if I did this to myself back when I was 16, when I had my abortion, would I be able to have kids now? So I think the confirmation of being pregnant kind of helped to validate that, okay, my body is able to have kids, and I was really happy about that. But then I was going through the turmoil of like, holy shit, we're gonna have a kid now.
Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah.
Sounds right.
We give ourselves about an hour or two, and then it slowly sank in, and then we actually started to become really happy and elated with the idea.
Oh, I just remembered.
What?
It was election night.
That was the same day. Yeah, it was election day.
Oh, election day, yeah.
Yeah, election day. So there was a lot going on at the same time anyways. Like everybody's emotions and like was running high at an all-time high, added to election day, finding out that I was pregnant. It was just like chaotic that day. So we found out And then it took a little while for it to sink in. And then afterwards, we just went full on into baby mode. We started discussing like baby names, how we'd have to like reprioritize our finances, what our goals were for the next like 6 months in the foreseeable future. And then we started to fast track house hunting as well. As you guys know now, we are going to try to house hunt this year. Obviously not as fast tracked anymore since we are no longer pregnant, but like our priorities completely changed with like the blink of an eye. So we were really, really happy. We wanted to wait until the first trimester to tell anybody, like friends, family, you guys especially on here. So we were actually really excited to eventually be able to record an announcement video. Fast forward a couple days later though, that definitely wasn't the case. We didn't go. We went back home to Ottawa that following weekend, like 4 to 5 days later, and made the decision to tell my parents and his immediate family, because we didn't want to feel isolated and alone with this, not like medical predicament, but change to my health. We live really far away from our family. They live in Ottawa and we live in Toronto, and both of our GPs at the time are in Ottawa as well. So we didn't actually have any health care here in Toronto. We do now, but we just wanted somebody to guide us through the process and to make sure it was the healthiest one possible. So we told our families. They were all extremely excited for us. We were on like cloud 9 for the whole weekend while we were there. It was really, really nice. And then we went back home. All of this, coupled along with the fact that it was like elections as well, was the beginning of the busiest time of the year for us. I've mentioned on here many times that the holidays are extremely, extremely busy for us. There's a lot of partnerships and collaborations. So we were super stressed out about that as well. And actually, now that I think about it, I don't know if that stress kind of induced what happened. But no, I can't think like that.
I don't think
anymore.
that's how this works.
No, that's not how it works. So I can't think like that anymore. But these are definitely thoughts that jumped through my head at the time when we were going through the miscarriage. So fast forward a couple days after coming back from Ottawa, I think this was like literally within a week. Was this?
Yeah, we came back on the Monday.
And then when everything happened, Tuesday.
No. Wednesday, because we had to get you blood tests and the ultrasound, right?
Oh no, but I started bleeding on Tuesday afternoon, I think.
Oh yeah, because the call with your GP was on Wednesday.
Yeah, so
and then everything happened. Yeah.
I booked a call with my GP like that weekend when I went back to Ottawa, just to be able to jump on the call with him to discuss everything, just to see if there's anything I had to change to my diet, my lifestyle for the pregnancy, just to make it as healthy as possible. But then that Tuesday, after we came back from Ottawa, I started spotting in the afternoon. I quickly jumped online and did some research, and we found out that spotting is pretty normal within the first trimester, but it usually should stop within a couple of days, and the flow shouldn't really be heavy whatsoever at all. So I thought, like, okay, that's fine, don't stress about it right now, there's nothing we can do. I'm just gonna wait and monitor the spotting and hope that it gets a little bit better. The next day, on the Wednesday, I was bleeding a little bit more heavily, slightly on like the more medium side. I had my call with my GP and I let her know that I was pregnant and been pregnant for about a week, well, since I found out, and then I had started spotting. So she said that it was imperative for me to go to a walk-in clinic so that they could do some blood tests to confirm that I was pregnant, and also an ultrasound so they could see what was going on there.
Well, no, so they could requisition it.
Oh, yeah,
Not so they could actually
so they could
do
requisition
it.
the ultrasound, and then I could get an ultrasound done.
Yeah.
So getting off the call with her, since I don't have a GP in Toronto, we went to a walk-in clinic. Really, really thankful that they were able to see us literally that same afternoon. I had to call at like 11 o'clock in the morning. I think we went to go see them at like 1.
Yep.
So we booked it there, but went to go see the doctor, told him what happened with the spotting, and then he instantly set up a requisition for some blood tests. So what happens when you're pregnant is that your beta HCG levels increases, and I think that tells your body, from my understanding, to increase your hormones such as estrogen and progesterone so that it can kind of like facilitate the pregnancy. And when you are not pregnant, you really have like negligible traces of BHCG levels in your body, but as you progress through your pregnancy, they drastically increase. So they wanted to monitor my HCG levels over the course of like, I think, a week to make sure that it was increasing in accordance with a healthy and normal pregnancy. So I had that, and then he also drew up an ultrasound requisition so I can go in and get a doctor to take a look and see that there is like an egg sac there, and that my uterus was like healthy and like forming what it needed to carry the child. Also, since because I was spotting, they wanted to ensure that I wasn't having a miscarriage. So that was like a slew of like, what, 5-6 hours of having the call with my GP, 2 hours later going to see a walk-in clinic, getting
Yep.
the requisitions, running up to a Life Labs to get my very first blood work done, and then going over and
No.
oh no, going to the ultrasound
It was
place.
walk-in clinic, ultrasound.
Yeah, and then they said we
Ultrasound
had to
said
wait
we had to wait 45 minutes. So then we went up to Life Labs,
to get the blood work.
got the blood test done, and then booked it straight back to the ultrasound place like 20 minutes before they closed or something crazy like that.
It was a flurry of like 6 hours at a time to get all that stuff done, because
Yeah.
like you can't wait when you're doing these things. You just have to know like right away, and there's like a process, especially when it comes to your health. So we got that all done within one day, and then we waited. I had to wait 2-3 days before I would get my next blood work done. So then I went back to get a second blood work done, and then
That was on Friday, right?
yeah, that Friday
Yeah.
I got the secondary one done. And then I guess in the meantime, the doctor at the walk-in clinic gets the submissions of all of the blood work and the ultrasound. So he called me actually the same day that I got my secondary blood work done on Friday and told me that, did I have my second one done yet? And did I get a chance to see the HCG numbers? This was like 10 o'clock in the morning, and the blood test clinics open up at like 8 a.m. So I hadn't obviously had my results back yet. And he asked me about my spotting and bleeding. It had actually gotten worse at that point already. And he said, monitor my levels of beta HCG when I get the chance to access my results, and to let him know. But if any of the bleeding got worse, I needed to go to the ER right away. I was confused at that point. I was like, why? Like, if I'm bleeding, isn't just gonna all come out? I later found out that once you start bleeding, your body has to actually carry through a termination of pregnancy fully and healthily, or else any leftover tissue inside your uterine lining can potentially cause infections, because it's just like rotting tissue in there, and not everybody is able to fully pass out and terminate a pregnancy healthily on their own, and there are some aids that science has designed to help you do that. So I said, okay. So I went back home, waited for my results, and then the spotting actually got, was it that same night? No, that was the next morning, Saturday.
It was on Saturday.
That was Saturday. So Saturday morning, my bleeding was getting quite heavy at that point. I had transitioned over to heavy pads. I was like right in the middle of shooting a campaign. It's so fun. Like I said, we were really busy into content production.
Oh, man.
It was bad. It was
Yeah,
bad. I was
that was
shooting a
not great.
campaign by myself. I was recording stories for a brand. And then out of nowhere, I felt like a gush of blood come out. Anybody who has periods will know what it feels like when you first start your period and you feel that little leakage. It was like a torrential like waterfall that came out. And I like yelled at Peter from the bedroom, and I ran to the bathroom, and I went in, and TMI guys, skip over this if it's too gross for you, but I literally like peeled off my underwear and everything, and like there was blood literally coming down my legs. It was really gross. He is literally the best husband on earth, and managed to help me clean all of that up without, I don't know, getting grossed out by it.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
I actually
Yeah.
like really appreciate you like taking care of me over the course of that like week or two. It was, I definitely don't think I would have been able to go through this entire process by myself. Not only was it like visually and physically traumatizing, I think it was also very like mentally traumatizing as well.
I think most of it was psychological than physical.
Psychological, yeah. Our emotions
Yeah,
were
'cause,
like
like,
going
you-
back and forth the whole time.
Your body is like specifically your body, it just pushed through, right? There weren't any real complications.
No,
luckily.
so
I think most of your trauma must have been psychological more than anything else.
it definitely was such psychological, because it went from leading an everyday normal life to like riding this high of like, oh my god, I'm pregnant, we're gonna have a baby, a complete mental switch as to how we were going to operate our life moving forward, to then finding out that I was miscarrying and like dealing with that aftermath, if that makes sense. But yeah, so then when that happened, I instantly called my parents to let them know. At that point, we hadn't told anybody yet that I was miscarrying, because I think we were holding on to that like really thin thread of hope that it was just a little bit of spotting and that the pregnancy would completely go back to normal. That definitely wasn't the case. I called my mom, and she's also a nurse, so she instantly told me like, you need to go to the ER like right now. If you're bleeding that much, like you have to go. I was literally filling full heavy flow maxi pads every 2 hours and having to switch them out. Like, it was disgusting. So I told her, okay, I know emergency rooms take like a 3-5 hour wait.
Everyone knows how emergency rooms are.
They take
Everyone
forever.
knows how long it takes, right?
I've been in them before. I've had experiences where I've spent half a day in there. So I was like, I told her like, listen, I'm already miscarrying. There's nothing that I can do to stop this at this moment.
You didn't tell her this.
No, I didn't tell her this. I told
we
her I was
talked
going.
about this.
We talked about this on ourselves. I told her I was gonna go. But after I got off the phone with my mom, we talked and we said that you're gonna be stuck in there anyway, so we might as well eat a full lunch so you don't get hungry, because you have to wear masks when you're there now because of COVID, and you can't really take them off to eat. I also just don't want to eat inside of a hospital. I feel like that's kind of gross. And I also went to the bathroom so I wouldn't have to go pee while I was there. And then I fully charged up my phone and packed some reading material there to help me kill the time while we were there. So we prepared to go to the hospital. In the duration of the time between getting off the call with my mom and going to the hospital, I think this was I called around 2 o'clock. We ended up going in around 6 p.m. that night. This is where it gets really, really gross. So I was continuing to pass more liquid and tissue. Oh yes, that first one, when I freaked out and called Peter, I passed a clot. If you guys don't know what clot is, it's like tissue material. It's essentially, I think, like your uterine lining just expelling from your body. I literally passed a clot the size of my palm. It looked like, for lack of better terms, like Chinese blood pudding. Would you say it looked like that?
Sure.
If you guys don't know what blood pudding is, look it up on Google.
Or don't. If you're not comfortable, do not.
I wouldn't recommend it. It's extremely graphic.
This visual is not for everybody.
It's definitely not for everyone, but if you're curious, look it up. It was literally the size of my palm in my pad. The second part, I think it was around 4 p.m. I was passing more blood and more clots, but this is going to sound really gross. I literally passed, I strongly think now, it was the egg sac of the fetus, along with the placenta and everything in there. It was the size of a mini tangerine, sort of like an egg. And this was not bloody. There was blood around it, but it had tissue. It was the color of your skin.
Yep.
I felt it. I full on felt it. It was really weird and a huge, for lack of better terms, a complete mind fuck to see that. Peter saw it as well too, and I think at that point that really solidified in my head that I am having a full-on miscarriage. So at that point it kind of rushed us to go to the hospital, drop me off. He wasn't allowed in there with me because given the current climate, you're not allowed your partners, you have to go in alone. So that was also extremely isolating as well. I think I stayed a total of only 3.5 hours there, eh?
Yeah, well, they rush you through, right?
They did rush me through. I think miscarrying is pretty high in the trauma.
Well, if you're bleeding a lot, generally the ER is going to take you in pretty quickly, no matter if it's you know what I mean?
I wasn't in pain though. That was the weird part.
It doesn't matter
I didn't have any
pain.
Cramps, which is a very
it doesn't matter.
Popular symptom.
Losing a lot of blood is not good for anybody.
Correct.
No matter what situation you're in.
Correct.
So they're going to take care of you first.
Yeah. So I went in, I was admitted within 10-15 minutes of me seeing, I guess, the admission staff there.
The triage?
Yeah,
person?
The triage. They sent me over to a wing to be seen by a doctor. I think I waited about half an hour before a nurse saw me. She said she needed to take some blood work. Oh my God, this part is this is the most scarring part for me, I feel after this whole experience. So she went to go get some blood work done because I guess she had to go read my HCG levels as well. And when she went in, she went to my left arm here where I was getting all the blood work done already that week.
That was 2.
I already had 2 done. This was blood work number 3. So she went in with a needle and she said that she couldn't find my vein at all. And when she went in a couple times, it was painful. I was swearing in my head at this point. She said my veins had collapsed and asked if I had blood work done recently, and I said yes, I had 2 blood works done already. So she said at that point they had probably just completely collapsed my veins with constant poking the needles, and it hadn't healed over yet for another needle to go in to get more blood done. So I said, okay, cool, you can try my right arm if you want, and she went in and did that. Partway through, I think she had a total of 4 vials that she needed to fill. She only filled 2. I don't know what happened. I think in between attaching the new vials to the needle, she may have completely punctured through the vein because that vein also collapsed and she wasn't able to completely extract all the blood she needed for the blood work. And I was sitting there being what the hell is going on? Because she was shoving the needle already inside of my arm, digging around, and this one was even more painful than that side. So she was oh, it looks like your veins have collapsed in your right arm as well, but I guess this should be enough blood for us to test your level. So I was okay, I haven't done anything to my right arm. I don't know why in the world my veins would have been collapsed. Anyways, she put a little cotton swab on there and put some tape down, told me to compress it to prevent any bruising. You're supposed to apply pressure for about 4 to 5 minutes in order for the, I guess, the incision or whatever, the puncture wound, to fully clot over. I did that. I actually pressed it down for like 10 minutes straight because I had slight bruising on my left arm from the previous blood work that week. And then I went back out and sat there waiting for my blood work to get tested by the labs and to be able to be called in by the doctor. I think about like 45 minutes to an hour later, the doctor called me in, spoke to me about my situation. I gave him the rundown. At that point, I already had access to my secondary HCG test for my blood work and told him that my numbers had gone down. I think the first number was around 7,000 for the first test, and then the second test had already dropped to 4,000. So that was an indicator that the pregnancy was already failing itself there. So the third test that they were doing internally at the hospital would more or less confirm whether or not my numbers had dropped at that point. And then he said, given the story that I told him in regards to the bleeding, the clotting, the tissue passing, my HCG numbers from the blood work that I had done outside of the hospital, and all the symptoms that I was feeling, he strongly felt that I was miscarrying, but he wanted to put me through an ultrasound first to get a confirmation. So he set up a requisition for an ultrasound at the hospital. So then after that, I waited about another half an hour, 45 minutes or so, and then got to go see an ultrasound tech. They did the topical external one on my abdomen area, and then they also did the intravaginal one as well, just to be able to see like what's going on inside there. The ultrasound tech can't tell you anything at all, and she actually told me in the spot, she's like, listen, I can't tell you any results, but you're gonna have to wait for the doctor for them to interpret it. I guess it just releases them from liability of reading anything. They're not necessarily, I guess, licensed or trained to be able to diagnose visually what they see, but they're trained to use the equipment to find what the doctor needs to see. So then after that, I went back to the waiting room again. I waited about another half an hour, 45 minutes before the doctor pulled me in to his office. I sat down there and he said, looking at my HCG levels, I had actually dropped to almost like 1,000. So that was a drastic decline from the span of like 4 days, from 7,000 down to 1. And he said that it looked like from my blood work, I was miscarrying. The ultrasound that I got on Wednesday of that week had stated that the birth gestational period was at 7 weeks. And at that point, the very first ultrasound that I had, that they weren't able to detect a fetal heart rate, which means there was no beating heart. So usually at the 5 to 7 week period is when you should be able to start detecting a fetal heart rate. And they did it at that time, so they wanted to see if the secondary ultrasound was able to detect one. And at that point, they said that they actually didn't even detect anything at that point anymore. All tissue had more or less slowly already been expelled from my uterus. So it more or less had confirmed that there was a baby at that point and there no longer is a baby now. And then he said that there are a couple of different options when it comes to a miscarriage. Either option one, which is the best case scenario, is that your body can fully expel everything cleanly on its own and you don't need any sort of invasive procedures or any sort of like countermeasures to help your body to fully terminate the pregnancy. Option number two is that if there is leftover tissue, the first step they would do is use these like vaginally inserted pills that helps to induce contractions, and it helps to push out all of the remaining tissue that's inside of your uterus.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's I guess there's like a hormone or something in there that induces contractions once it dissolves and it gets absorbed into the mucous lining of your vagina. And then step number three, I completely forget what it's called now, but it's essentially similar to the procedure they perform when you're getting an abortion, which is they kind of put, like, for lack of better terms, like a vacuum up there and it sucks everything out for you. And that's the most invasive one, which welcome to the workings of the female body. That's the most invasive one, where they usually try to avoid whenever possible. Luckily, the doctor said that from the looks of how my body was handling it, I was rolling in option one. My body had healthily terminated the pregnancy on its own, and it was fully just evacuating all tissue without the help or the aid of anything else. So obviously not the best scenario, but due to the circumstances, it was the best case scenario that could have occurred, and that I should be not happy, but like thankful that there were no potential infections or other issues arising with our situation. He then also, I guess when it comes to doctors, and I've had a couple of discussions with some other friends and family members that are doctors as well, and they all kind of had like the same mindset, explained logically to me that most often miscarriages are due to your body recognizing an unhealthy fetus. So chances are it was something like a chromosome, there was like a chromosomal defect with the baby, and my body recognized it, so it's decided that there's no point carrying this baby to full term because you're gonna have an unhealthy baby, your child, so might as well just stop it at this point and kind of just and terminate the pregnancy. So I guess that's what happened. He walked me through the fact that no matter how much I try not to, there will be overwhelming like feelings of guilt, emotions of, I guess, shame associated with myself. And I can confirm I definitely did have a lot of these thoughts running through my head from the first day I spotted up until the very last day when all the bleeding finished. I think it was like a span of 2 full weeks of thoughts such as like, what could have I done to fix this? Did I do something for this to happen? What can I do to help slow this down or to ensure that my baby like actually stays around? Like, am I a bad person? Am I a bad mom? Did I not fix my diet properly? Did I work out too much? Was I drinking too much alcohol before? All of these things. He said none of these things could have contributed given how early on the pregnancy was. Chances are it was just an unhealthy fetus that just wasn't meant to be. And it truly took me a long time to wrap my head around this, I think. Like a full week for me to come to terms that it just wasn't meant to be. But yeah, after that I went home. He said just to watch my bleeding. If it got significantly worse, then to come back into the hospital, but it should get better after that. So it took like an extra week and a half for all the bleeding to fully stop. All of my pregnancy symptoms kind of like disappeared, and that was that. So yeah, that is essentially my story. I think now actually being able to like vocalize it with you guys kind of helps to kind of make it feel a little bit more concrete. Like we've had a lot of discussions ourselves. We've talked about like how I feel, how Peter feels. We've talked with our friends and our family, kind of walked through like all the different scenarios. I think this doesn't really change our plans or goals to have kids in the future at all. If anything, I want them even more now. It's the sense of like having something and then not being able to have it just feels like it's been ripped away from you.
Yeah. As a dude, it's like, I don't know, it's a different state of mind, because as a guy, like you're not like, nothing happened to my body, right? Like I was more just there to support you initially. So my state of mind was like, let's get through the first trimester and then we'll really start to see.
Yeah, because
I think it was like every 4 pregnancies end up in a miscarriage?
Yeah, it's like 1 in every 4 pregnancies ends in miscarriage, but 1 out of every 10 women experience a miscarriage. So
yeah,
it's extremely, extremely common.
The other one is that, like, one of my buddies told me this. I think it was like 44% of women experience a miscarriage in their life at some point, whether they know it or not, right? So like I've heard a lot of stories in the past where like girls when we were younger would just like have a miscarriage and not even like not realize that they were even pregnant until like you just see it there and you're like, oh, okay.
You're late by 2 weeks and then you're pregnant and then you have a miscarriage like a few days afterwards.
Yeah, and you're like, oh damn, okay, kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot more, I don't want to say, like, it is more normal than you would actually think if you're not going into the situation.
Yeah, I definitely think it's like a medical situation that until you're aware of it, you don't realize how common it is.
Yeah.
And I would say just reproductively, everything around the topic of like females and males is so taboo to begin with. People never really feel comfortable sharing their stories, which is primarily why we wanted to share it, just to kind of help if anybody else is going through the same thing, realize that they're not alone and it's actually a lot more common and that they're not experiencing this by themselves. For myself, I think it was really eye-opening to go through this. Like you don't ever grow up thinking things like, oh, I'm gonna have a miscarriage, I won't be able to have all the children I want. Like obviously nobody thinks like that, but like in other scenarios in your life you constantly walk through like worst case scenarios and hoping that doesn't happen, and these are some sort of things where you don't realize it happens to a lot more people until it happens to you, and then you realize like that's some adult shit. If that's
a nice way to put it.
Yeah, so
I have a question.
Yeah.
Given what we know now, like after obviously going through it and then like researching on our own and stuff,
yeah,
would you have still told our families before the first trimester?
Yes.
Would you tell anyone else? Because we didn't tell, like, more openly, we didn't tell like any of our friends. any of our family that's like similar age to us.
So, okay, so the reason that we didn't tell any of our friends before the first trimester primarily was exactly for this situation. I didn't want to have to potentially tell people, get excited, share the excitement with them, get them excited just to like tell them it wasn't going to happen, if that makes sense. Like, it's just so much undue stress to have to create this roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just feels strange to announce something to then suddenly like pull it back and be like, oh no, never mind. I don't know. I think...
Yeah, kind of like having a wedding during COVID.
Yeah, exactly. We've had to delay our wedding twice now, so it's similar, not exactly similar, but similar-ish. I think I really appreciated telling our family the first time, primarily also just because we didn't know what was, like, any specific lifestyle and health changes we had to make in regards to a pregnancy, since we've never experienced one before.
Yeah, they were good resources.
They were very, very good resources and, like, super helpful. Also, given the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic right now, so it's not as easy to access all of these healthcare resources as you would like. It was an extremely isolating experience. I can imagine how isolating it is to begin with on your own outside of a pandemic, having to hide the news that you're pregnant for 3 months from your family and friends. Also, for somebody who has such like a public-facing job like myself, like I don't know how girls hide it when they wear clothes in the summertime hiding their pregnancies. Wintertime definitely is a lot easier because you're wearing jackets and like baggier clothing and sweaters, but like thinking about all of those things, also thinking about like my partnerships, like now I had to stop doing alcohol partnerships and like visually stop drinking alcohol. Honestly guys, I was so scared I was going to reveal myself in front of my friends because I literally, my lifestyle had to change. I couldn't drink wine anymore, I couldn't eat raw fish, sushi, you guys know that's my crutch. I love soft cheeses and charcuterie meats. What else is there? Coffee, I had to limit it down to like 1 cup a day max. So
you can drink coffee though.
You can drink coffee. We did learn this. I believe you can consume up to 200 milligrams per day. You have to start changing up your skincare. I think you're not supposed to use retinol because it's not good either. There's like a whole slew of other lifestyle changes that you have to make that I wasn't aware of, that our families actually like told us. So it was helpful to get their advice and their expertise on the whole process as well. So I don't regret telling them, and I don't regret telling our closest friends though, so we wouldn't have had to have that conversation.
Cool.
At this point now though, all of our close friends are aware of it and they do know what happened.
If you're watching this for the first time and you're a close friend, you're not the only one that we didn't tell. We only told like a handful of people at most.
We kept this like really close in our circle.
Because we have a lot of close friends that we didn't tell either, right?
No, like we told the closest friends that we felt we needed to tell.
Yes. And
now that this has happened, it's kind of over. I've kind of like compartmentalized that into another part of my mind as well.
It's just in the past now.
It is in the past now. So, well, we hope that sharing this story with you guys on here kind of helps anybody else who may be going through this, since it is such an isolating experience and you can't tell a lot of people or you don't feel comfortable telling a lot of people. Just know that you're not alone. It happens a lot more frequently than you may think. And I hope that having more discussions like these really help to open up the topic a bit more and make it less taboo and make people feel more comfortable sharing their experiences with others, and also being comfortable asking for help and kind of removing the stigma of shame around it, because I don't think you should feel shameful for having a miscarriage. Since most of the times it's just your body terminating on its own due to its detection of not having a healthy fetus. It's not necessarily something that you did, and I think that's really, really important, because at least for myself, I don't know if you ended up doing this at all, but I walked myself through so many scenarios of like how I could have caused it when it was not within my control at all, especially that early on in the pregnancy.
No, again, as a guy, can't do any of that stuff. I feel like an ass for saying it, but as a guy, you're removed from it in that way, right? Because there's literally nothing I could have done. What am I gonna do? Like yell at you for doing this? No.
Yeah.
All I did was watch what you ate and drank.
Yeah.
That was it. That's all the guy can really do at that point, and just provide support.
You were really helpful though. Like he made breakfast for me every single day, and like he didn't yell at me when I had cravings for like chips right after like having dinner and stuff. So it was nice.
Yeah.
You
support.
Let me eat everything that I wanted.
Yeah, that's support.
I really appreciated that. So yeah, so I hope you guys found this video helpful. This is something that we've been sitting on for a long time, and I didn't know when it would be the appropriate time to share it, but we both felt it was really important to share and to kind of tell you our story. We will continue to update you guys though in the future if we do ever get pregnant again. We've had discussions about that, and having a family is definitely not within the scope of our future. That makes sense, a double negative.
What?
Having a family is 100% in the scope of our near future, and I think we do want to actively try within the next year or so
We'll
start
see.
family planning.
We'll see.
We'll
That
see.
might be a conversation for off camera. Some things can't just be put out there, you know?
I know. But we're not like pushing it off as much anymore. Like from this whole experience, it just, like I said, it just makes me want to have them even more now, knowing that I was that close to having our first baby, but it didn't happen. So yeah.
Yep.
That's it. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you're having an awesome day. If you guys have any questions at all, I am, like I said, an open book. I'll try my best to answer as many comments and questions as you guys have if you want to drop them down below. But otherwise, I hope you guys are having a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.